Hi, and welcome to another Scientology Outside of the Church podcast. This is season 12, episode 24, a conversation on the axioms and subjectivity and objectivity and all. This is going to be more of a conversation that's a podcast to help the understanding of others through a podcast, through a conversation with another. And I'm here with Raven, who is one of our staff members here at AOGP. And we're just going to jump right into it. And the context is the axioms, subjectivity, and objectivity, postulates, and you name it, the kitchen sink. So we've been going back and forth on this in the org chat, and I figured we could kill two birds with one stone. So how are you, Raven?
I'm amazing. Happy to be here. Let's go.
Great. All right. So where are you at on the axioms and subjectivity and objectivity and postulates and everything? Where do you stand is your understanding? Because everything is relative, and I think this will be very helpful for a lot of people getting all this cleared up. We've talked about the axioms practically in every podcast, so let's just jump right into it.
Okay. So where I'm at is I'm trying to really iron out what is my understanding, what definition do I have for subjective, what is objective, and are my definitions I'm working with actually the workable definitions? And so I'm checking in with Jonathan, I'm checking in with Quentin. I was just on like a 47-minute phone call with Quentin, getting this sorted out and what's true, what's real. And so it's been a fun conversation. But that's my big point of interest, is really defining objectivity and what is subjective.
Right. Okay. So auditing can be subjective or objective. There are two types of auditing processes. There are subjective processes. Think the thought, I am a wildflower. That's from one of the drills for the upper indoctrination TRs. Okay, that's a subjective process. Just thinking that's subjective. A postulate is also subjective in the beginning and then can become objective. You decide, and I've used this example before in the podcast. You make the decision, you make the postulate, I'm going to brush my teeth at night and in the morning when I get up. That's a postulate. And then you put it into action. It goes from subjective as a postulate to objective. You brush your teeth twice a day. In an auditing session, you're doing something objectively. Recall a time you went and had an ice cream cone as a kid. That's subjective. Okay. You're not there. It's in thought. You're going back down the track. You're doing a recall process. Recalling a time that you had an ice cream cone as a kid. That's subjective. You're subjectively going back and looking at those pictures that you are creating, which are an act of creating an objective universe. Your own energy is creating that image. Okay. Did it happen? Yes, it was in the physical universe and was objective. But you're recreating it in a new unit of time, going back down the time track and saying, okay, I've got that significance. I've got that picture. Okay, now you're creating in a new unit of time subjectively, and to a degree, it is objective to you because you're making it objective again. You're not there now, but you're creating it now. Does that help?
Was a yes and for me. And what it really got, Quentin called, he observed our Telegram chat back and forth and was like, what's going on here? Called me and was giving me his viewpoint on it. And, I started, digress a bit. I was like, okay. And then we got to a point where I was like, wait, Quentin, you're actually proving my case. My case is closed at this point. And what I got the articulation for, and is essentially, I've seen that there are technology devices present day, however long it's been in existence, so to speak, that these devices can measure thought waves as sound waves, and they can be recorded and measured as sound decibels, audio that is just above the audio decibels that our human ears, this human technology body can pick up on.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I was stating was, as soon as any Thetan, any being postulates something or creates something, as soon as it is created, even a thought, to create a thought, it's automatically, subject to time, and therefore it can be observed because it's of the messed universe, or the messed reality. Is that correct to say?
Well, it shows up on a meter as
Well,
as an electrical charge because they have created mass. And per the how the e-meter works, e-meter essentials, all of the e-meter books, the Thetan is creating. Thetan is a energy creating unit per the axioms. So they're putting it there. You're constantly creating small, tiny units of mass. Whatever it is that you're doing, that you can't help it. That's just how a Thetan works. That shows up, that's subjective. That shows up as objective and can be measurable on the e-meter. That's all a Thetan does is create, 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 create. But the problem is to have something persist, which is Axiom 11, which we talked about earlier this morning on a call. Axiom 11, for anything to persist, there is an alter isness. Okay, you're constantly changing it in order for it to persist. The physical universe is an example of that. It's an agreed upon, this is our reality. This is my reality. This is your reality. Okay, within the physical universe. That's the objective side of it. But also, the agreement is an alteration to keep it persisting because the physical universe is constantly changing to persist. We've agreed on that. Okay, sound waves, that is energy. It's part of the electromagnetic spectrum, above or below what we can hear with a human uh, meat sack known as a body. Okay, and it's a very narrow band of which you can get a small part of the spectrum in the electromagnetic spectrum that you can perceive. Dogs can perceive, cats can perceive, animals in general can perceive a wider bandwidth of that than we can in bodies. There's a lot more. You can see it in the part of the spectrum that is your infrared and your infragreen and all of that, and why they had to change from infragreen to infrared because they were seeing parts of the physical universe that we can't see that have things in them that were freaking people out, specifically helicopter pilots and all of that stuff, because it's not something the human body can perceive, but you can see it in the infragreen spectrum. So they moved to infrared spectrum. Okay, so there's a lot more going on in the physical universe than literally, and I say this jokingly, than meets the eye, but it's true. But just because you can't perceive it doesn't mean it's not there. You're in a body which is a very limited bandwidth. Okay, now as a Thetan, you can perceive a lot in the theta universe and the physical universe as well. Okay, so when you make a postulate, you're putting something there into the physical universe, both objectively and subjectively. You said, I'm going to brush my teeth in the morning and the evening. Okay, so you follow through with it and you take that and you go from be to do to have. Now you have clean teeth. Okay, because you needed to be the person brushing the teeth, do the brushing of the teeth, and now you have clean teeth. This is how a Thetan works in the physical universe. Is there this little Thetan finger sticking themselves into the physical universe, playing this game on a chessboard and moving pieces around, and everything gets pushed by a Thetan or physical universe to physical universe. How does an engine work? How does sound work? Something is pushing something else. You have waves that push air so that you have sound. Now, even if you don't have air, the wave is still there, but it's in the electromagnetic spectrum. It's not pushing. In a car, you have combustion pushing a drivetrain that turns wheels that pushes a car down the road. Everything pushes everything else. And this is true for a Thetan as well. So the Thetan is pushing around the physical universe. How good they are at it depends on their innate ability or lack thereof. Okay. So you're counter creating the physical universe to push something in some direction, whether it's with thought, motion, what have you. But it's all an energy creation put there by the Thetan. Now, when somebody's at the lower end of the bridge, they're counter creating their creates. Postulate, counter postulate, goals, problems, mass. I want to be a recording musician, but I can't be a recording musician because then I wouldn't have a game. So I have to keep playing that game. And it's so hard. And these suppressives in the music industry and da 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 da. But these are all considerations, which are they themselves postulates. Okay. Because a Thetan has to have game. That's an axiom as well. Because freedoms, boundaries, and purposes, that's an axiom. Okay. Because if you could play all the games you wanted to play and didn't have any trouble doing them, you wouldn't have a game. Well, that's the physical universe. It's just whether you want to play the games you created or go into the agreements with the physical universe through your own considerations as postulates to whether you want to have those boundaries or you want to have something else. But you have to recover that ability that you already have because you've told yourself through postulates and through considerations, I cannot knock cats off at a distance. I am a meat body. That's your agreement as a Thetan. And everybody else in this universe, well, I'll go as far as to say that to one degree or another, they're still playing the physical universe game, unless you're dealing with, I don't know, you want to go as far as to say advanced civilizations and stuff where they no longer use bodies now or in the past. Yeah, those exist. And you know, that makes much more sense. And they have different types of games. And LRH says and there are universes. Yes, there are other universes besides the physical universe, or what they call planes, PLAINS, you know, different planes of existence. This plane of existence is a lower order. It's more solid. It's lower on the tone scale. So this is the game we're playing, Thetan with physical universe instead of Thetan with some other universe or the Theta universe. So it gets really confusing for a Thetan because it doesn't work the way they work. They have to lie. They have to lie to themselves and with the physical universe to be in agreement with it. Therefore, it persists. That's axiom 11. Isness, alter isness, not isness, as isness. Auditing gets an as isness and gets the Thetan to look at all of these decisions that they've made that they didn't need to make, but were convinced and convinced themselves that needed to be made that were wrong directions. That doesn't mean it makes them bad. It's just was a wrong tallying of this. I shouldn't do this anymore. Okay. Well, you just stopped yourself from doing this anymore. Make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah. I, I have two things that have come up here
Okay.
for me. One, I think it may be spelled PLANES for the planes of existence definition. But then the other one is I heard you
Yeah, those
say,
are there. Yeah, there's a plane. Yeah, there's a plane. There's a level plane on a plane. Okay, they're playing fields. Okay, they're different fields of existence where you're on a plane. Okay, the physical universe is, well, some would argue, more than three dimensions. I don't disagree with that, but that is a plane of existence. Okay, on that playing field, the chessboard is a plane of existence. But you are right; they are two different words to signify two different tiers of something. You are on a plane, PLANE, of existence, but you are playing on a plane within that plane.
wow, okay. Um, so uh, the next thing that I heard you say there, and you said basically this a fish will be swimming through water, and the fish will be propelling and moving itself with the counter create by the swimming and pushing of the fins and everything. And so, as a Thetan, are we swimming with our thoughts? Is our thoughts like a Thetan's fins? Is that accurate to say?
Well, you're directing energy. You're pushing a body around as a Thetan on that plane, in that plane. Okay, you're pushing it around. You control it like a marionette, just like a fish does, pushing itself with its fins off the water. Okay. pushing it forward or up or down, changing its ballast. That's all controlled by the organism, lambda, life, in the axioms. That is what life does, is it propels itself through that plane, on a plane, this one being the physical universe. But in the theta universe, you are a static. Okay, there is no time, place, distance, or anything like that. You don't, that's separate from the physical universe. We're all in the same room. We are all not one, but we are all in the same room, metaphorically speaking. Okay, so this location in space that you are in, you and I are both in the same quote unquote quote having to use a physical universe metaphor, because all language is based off of the physical universe, which we did a podcast on. We are all in the theta universe at this very moment. Okay, but we're also in the theta universe at the same time. So you and I occupy that plane, the theta universe of existence. So you don't have any time. Time is a physical universe construct. It is motion from point A to point B. At this point, we are moving in so many different directions in the physical universe, even though it seems like you're staying stationary. Every molecule in the body is moving around. The planet is spinning around. The galaxy is spinning around. It's a big clock, basically. That's what creates time. Okay, that's the physical universe. You and I are not of that plane. Okay, plane. However, we have gone into agreement that we can play on a plane, plain, in that plane. Okay, we are on a board called the physical universe within that universe known as the physical universe. And we change it, we alter it moment by moment. Auditing also changes your considerations as to what the rules of the game are for you as well as other people. If okay, realities are relative, okay?
So is it true to say that we are pushing with our thinking, our thoughts are a type of force that is actually moving us in a particular direction?
Give me that again.
So is in our thinking, do these thoughts that we are producing, are we using the thoughts to push ourselves along, like, so that we are moving as a being? We're like pushing with the thoughts. Basically, what I'm like drawing attention to is it true that there's an actual objectivity to thoughts and the thinking that is actually objective? Because it's like,
Sure, because you see thought on an e-meter. There's charge there. There's something being created. But
now,
thinkingness is below knowingness. Okay, so you're constantly think, figure out how to play the game, how to solve these problems. Think. That's lower on the tone scale, but you're creating, counter creating, counter creating constantly. This is part of the axioms. So all thought is the solution to a problem. That problem, Dianetic axiom number one, is to survive. So all thinkingness revolves around survivingness. Okay, so you're creating, counter creating. Okay, wait, I need to go out and make deliveries today. I need to stop at this light. I need to make sure I ring the doorbell properly and wait for them to respond, hand them their food. Okay, now I need to go back to the car. Okay, now I need to make sure that everything's acknowledged on the order. Boom, okay, waiting for another call. Okay, this is all thinkingness. This is you playing that game of delivery driver. Inside of that, you have survivingness, which is you're doing this because this is how you make a living, with the arbitrary of you need money in order to pay for your food, your housing, your gas, your vehicle, all of that. Okay, so that's an alter is. That's a whole other story when you get into money and all of this, that you have to have that to survive. That's the game that we've agreed on that we play, which
Hmm.
involves your thinkingness. Whereas knowingness is above that. That's a higher form of ARC. Okay. So to the degree that you get into think, figure, mass, that's what Scientology helps you with. The definition of Scientology is knowing how to know. So as you get all this thinkingness, all these decisions, let's say you have a big storage space with all of this crap that you've accumulated over time, well, your thinkingness is the same way. Okay. You got all this crap that you've decided, okay, I consider this, I consider that, I can do this, I can't do that, but I can do this if I can do that, blah, 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 blah. That's that storage space filled up with all these half baked considerations because of all of these earlier alterations, whether it's this lifetime or some other lifetime, that still stick with you up into present time. So we clear that out. Now you can perceive, you can be aware without being in this labyrinth with all of these dead ends, because you've looked at
Wow.
this stuff and gone, well, that was silly of me to think about that way. I could have just done that. But
Hmm.
you can either play, the game is, you can either play a game or you can have the game play you. Lower on the bridge, the game is playing you because you've decided, I'm going to have the game play me because this is how it is. That is a subjective decision that you are unaware of. And as you get auditing, you look at it and go, I can be the captain of this game and I can play it the way that I want to. Still a game, still mass involved, because you have all this alter isness in order to continue to persist to have that game. It's rigged in the physical universe. In the theta universe, it's not rigged, but that's the game you've decided to play. So you drop down from one plane to the other, pushing this body around, pushing this, pushing that, push, pushing your pedal to get down the road, pushing that, pushing here. And that's all we do all day. When you play a video game, what are you doing to play that video game? You're pushing a mouse that causes an electrical signal that pushes the chip, that pushes the code, that pushes this. And at the other end of that, you have the power station that's pushing this generator with steam or with coal or with nuclear that's push, 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 push. So at the end of the day, it's all push, whether it's from the Thetan or whatever the Thetans have created that they've agreed upon to push around. The question is, what do you want to push around? What do you consider things to be? And as you become aware that you can push things around differently, or not even push things around at all, they just happen and go above that. And you make a postulate and you're like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, that scared the crap out of me. Look what happened. Okay. That's what you get back on the OT levels. And it's really quite remarkable. But there's usually a calm lag of about 6 weeks to 6 months to 6 years to 60 years, depending on your current ability. Not that you don't have it, just that you have decided you have to go through all this pushiness and eventually it will surface into the physical universe. That's how postulates work. So wouldn't it be nice to get rid of that calm lag where you decide, okay, boom, it's this. And then people say, well, if that's the case, well, I just want to win the lottery. Okay, that's all good and fine. But there's all that responsibility that comes with pushing all that around with that money. And people fumble it and they end up being broke a couple years later because they haven't realized that that's part of the physical universe. It isn't the have of the physical universe, it's the be of the theta universe. Does that make sense?
Well, yes. And my question here would be, is the theta universe, is the thetaverse objective or subjective?
Well, it depends on your viewpoint.
Ah, dang. Well, so it can be an either or right there,
It
depending
can be.
on.
Right. Are you of the physical universe? Absolutely not. Are you playing a game in the physical universe? Absolutely. We're playing a game right now doing this podcast.
Okay,
Okay.
well, what about, say, someone imagines an object, and a so-called mind reader perceives of that imagined object it's been created by the other Thetan. So the Thetan's already created it, and now it's in time and it's in creation. And the quote unquote mind reader that may appear to have OT abilities, like extrasensory abilities,
Yeah.
can
OT
they
abilities.
can they perceive another person's postulate that it hasn't fully
Sure.
landed? And so
Sure.
privacy then. So like, what is the reality of privacy? Because this is what we were kind of getting there in my conversation with Quentin, because Quentin is saying like he is going to have his own experience, and it's kind of up to him whether or not he makes it available to other people to experience objectively. And I get that to some degree, and it's like, is it that us as Thetans have an ability to keep things cloaked and say, okay, cloak is on, and now I'm going to use my Theta hand and turn the cloak toggle off, and now it's available to be perceived uh, in this context, with like extrasensory perceptics. But is that toggle feature even a reality, or is it always perceivable by any Thetan?
Well, I mentioned this in a podcast a while back that LRH's first communicator back in the 50s, Andy Bagley, was our director of special affairs. I had the privilege of working with Andy, and he was quite a unique character, and he was in his 80s. This was back in 1989, 1990. And he told me a story where LRH developed an auditing process where everybody that did the auditing process could perceive what other beings around them were their thought processes, basically. And it was a huge nightmare because everybody was taken aback by what they were actually thinking about them and other people. That
Oh yeah.
created a problem. So he had to create another process to shut it off, because hilarity ensued in the fact that you were dealing with quote unquote minds. A mind is not part of the Thetan. It is something that the Thetan is mocking up. Okay. Thetan, mind, body. So if you were dealing with somebody who was Jesus like, even Jesus had critical thoughts. Okay. And like LRH says in Science or Survival, it's not criticism if it's true. But the thing is what's the need in hiding anything if you've got clean hands, which LRH talks about as well? Why do you need to hide anything? Well, they couldn't hide anything. So you're looking at this extensibility to perceive what a person was thinking moment by moment, and that can be done. It can be done with auditing, but you're also dealing with a person's mind. You're dealing with a composite being, and at the time they didn't. This is in the early 50s. I mean, they barely scratched the surface of what a composite being was. So these thoughts were coming from different parts of the composite being. They weren't necessarily coming from the person themselves, but they weren't able to look at that and go, oh, that was coming from that sector of that composite being. It wasn't coming from them. So it's all relative to the part of that area that you're looking at and perceiving as such. We know a lot more now about that than they did in the early 50s. Even LRH wasn't aware of it at the time that he created his process, and it caused a problem. So, to the degree that a person is themselves, they're being themselves, and they aren't this composite of a bunch of other influences, then you got nothing to worry about.
Mm-hmm. So we're making this case on the record. We're not able to be graced with the presence of Quentin, since his policy is no no doing this on Sundays, which is respectful.
Sunday
But
fun day.
Quentin, Quentin, we're saying that thoughts and thinking is objective, not
Is
subjective.
no, it's thoughts and thinking, and that's why we're doing this podcast. Thoughts are subjective.
They're
They
sub.
are they are not in the physical universe until you say they are objective. If I'm going to go brush my teeth, you're taking a subjective thought and then you're putting it into motion in the physical universe. Subjective is within the realm of thought, okay? But you can take it and put it into the realm of objectivity. The thought, I'm going to brush my teeth, becomes I am brushing my teeth in the physical universe. I'm going to be an entrepreneur and have a successful business. That's subjective until you make it so objectively. You can either postulate it and it just happens, okay? That's an OT ability. Or you can go through all of the ups and the downs and creating policy and finding out what not to do and all that stuff, which is part of the game. And then eventually that postulate becomes reality, either
Well,
slowly or quickly. But it all starts from a subjective point of view. Subjectivity is still in action, just not in the physical universe. Does that make
I,
sense?
I would say, just to make sure that I'm trying to create some common ground, maybe what I'm saying is irrelevant, but it seems like even the thinking, even though it's not of the, you can't hold it with your physical body, the thinking, the thought, but it can still be measured. And what Quentin was sharing with me is that as soon as something can be measured, it's objective. And
Well,
I'm saying
well,
we
to
have,
that degree, yes, to that degree, but that's the thing. Why do you have to create mass in order to have?
well, isn't technically a thought a mass?
Well, yeah,
It's
that's
like
what I,
mental mass, but
well, I mean, it's mental mass if you want it. What is a cognition? A cognition, a realization about something is as ising mental mass. You don't,
mhm.
you have to look at it as, do I need the physical universe? Do I need pictures to remember something? No. You've got yourself convinced to that at the lower end of the bridge. I need pictures. But you find out as a person gets auditing, the pictures sort of melt away. Okay. All that's left is the significance of, I won't do that ever again, but it's not forcing you to do something other than what you should because you realize that you as is the mass. Should I put my hand on a stove? No. Do I have to have a bunch of pictures, objective things that I'm mocking up, mocking up, mocking up, mocking up in order to remind me of that? No. You know, what happens with people? They throw away a scrapbook. They can still recreate the pictures if they want to, but they don't have to. It's when they obsessively do it over and over and over. That's an engram. That's a secondary. That's a lock. That's the mind. The Thetan doesn't need that. They've just gotten themselves to believe that they need a scrapbook to remind them, post it note, do this, don't do that. Okay.
Yep. I've heard somebody say that like a photograph can be like a talisman, that as soon as you access the talisman, it transports you to that location. And so if you have access to that memory without needing the physical quote unquote talisman object to take you there, then you can have all your memories in
Well,
full.
you already have them. All it's doing is restimulating something you're already creating. Okay. It's a via. The physical
Hmm.
universe is a via. It's solidity, it's alter isness, it's always there. So you're looking at a picture, okay, yeah, that's a physical universe representation that is constantly being altered in time through either digital or chemical processes that's altered there as zeros and ones or chemical processes on film, quote unquote, in order to persist. Okay, but a thing does the same thing. The physical universe object, a picture of an event, is no different than a Thetan's picture of an event that they're recreating. But they don't have to recreate the picture. It's sort of like when you take a program or a series of files and you zip drive it down to where it's compacted. okay, and might come down to one significance that has no mass, okay, and that is a stable datum. That's what a Thetan does eventually as they go up the OT levels, is they just look at it and go, yeah, I've been there, done that, okay, we know that. It doesn't have this stop. This is dangerous. You can't do this, because a Thetan can do that if they want, but they don't have to. They're not compelled to do that. So that comes back to Axiom 11. Do you want to sit there and alter something, or do you want to sit there and as is something and just look at, okay, yeah, this happened in the physical universe.
Ooh,
What happened to you as a Thetan? If you're not in the physical universe, are you taking pictures? No, there's no pictures
well,
to take in the Theta universe. Get it?
yeah. Well, so this just came up for me. Is privacy an alter is?
What is knowingness?
What is knowingness?
Is
Um,
complete and total knowingness privacy?
uh, no, not when it comes to like beyond the first dynamic considerations. Like, because if you can know all that is, and you have access to all the knowing that there is, that includes any space, I guess.
Right. Now I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with privacy. Okay? When you're on a planet with a bunch of people that have reactive minds, and what they think is different than what you think, then you have to worry about privacy. Okay? Because they might use something against you that you consider private, because they have a reactive mind. The reactive mind is not pro survival, it's contra survival. Okay,
Right. So
so
maybe,
if you're unaberrated, what do you got to worry about?
right. So maybe the privacy is a construct of uh, the aberration, that because the higher
It's a
tones can have access, they have an awareness to perceive anything. Um, and so for someone to have an intention, a malicious intention to use something against another being, that they would automatically be basically kind of like imprisoned from
that's
greater awareness anyways. So
that's right, because it's a withhold. What is a withhold? A withhold is an alter is that's based off of a contra survival act. Okay, that's axiom 38. Time, place, form, and event. Okay, that's an as isness when you get time, place, form, and event. Why does somebody have to hide something? Because they know it was something that they wouldn't want to do to them. Okay, that's what an
mhm.
overt is. It's an alteration. Okay, so the logic behind it is if you're cleaned up on everything, you got nothing to worry about. If somebody else's considerations are their considerations, you look at an HOA. Guy's got a barbecue out on his patio, and the HOA says that violates our HOA rules. Well, to the HOA people, that's an overt. To the person
Mm.
that owns the house and is paying a mortgage on it and interest and everything on the mortgage, they want to own a house, and they want to be able to barbecue in their backyard because they've sold their soul to own a piece of mess.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
yeah. Well,
what is the consideration there? One side says, no, you can't. The other side says, I own this property. But the HOA is saying, well, you agreed to these rules. Okay, so like LRH says, the only thing you can be found guilty of is being there and communicating. You signed the HOA when you bought the house. This is what it said. So who's right and who's wrong? Well, if
right.
everybody could say we all have equal and inalienable rights, if I want to have a barbecue, I'll have a barbecue. But when you sign on to something that says, well, uh, I'm agreeing to this, and this holds true for everything in the physical universe, their considerations versus yours, the agreement of such, that's where you get into this privacy thing, where everybody has their own considerations. And to the degree that they can look at it and go, what's the greatest good for the greatest number? Well, then, okay, you should be able to barbecue in your own backyard and your own property, even though it's not your own property because you still pay property tax on it, at least in the US. It's never really your property. You're just renting it, even though you pay off the note. You should be able to barbecue, and you shouldn't have somebody coming up acting like a Karen saying, I'm going to take your barbecue and I'm going to throw it over the fence because it doesn't belong here. So you see how this gets really complex really quick because postulate, counter postulate, which is subjective brought into the objective universe.
Right. And those, whoever got into that contract with that house and that property, they've had to have navigated in their thinking into that space.
Right.
And so, you know, you're subject to the terms and conditions of the contract, and even thinking that is a contract in itself.
Well, that's right. And the same holds true for a Thetan. Because it's all a consideration is agreement with self, like Ellerich says in the Axioms. There's your reality, the other person's or being's reality, and the agreed upon reality. The HOA agreement is the agreed upon reality. Did you sign that? Yes. Did you know what you're getting into? Maybe not. Does that make you wrong? Yes and no. Does it make the HOA wrong? Yes and no. But whatever the agreement is, the whole physical universe is that way. And the same thing is
Hmm.
true for you as a Thetan.
Hmm. So on the subject of a Thetan in their own uh like workshop of their innerverse, their thetaverse, is that
Mhm.
theta workshop before they bring it out into the world, so to speak, is that technically private? Like other people, other thetans of greater awareness levels, they have complete access to seeing what all is going on. There's no real privacy on the upper levels. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, the concern for privacy begins with self. Okay, because you've created your own things that you don't remember, you don't recall the decisions that you made, whether it was this lifetime or a billion years ago. You created your own false privacy because if you don't know
Okay.
something, you can't play a game. Does that make sense? And this is straight
If you
LRH.
you
You
don't
don't
know
know,
something.
right? If you ever tried to play checkers with yourself,
Um, no.
okay. If you play both sides of the board, you go, okay, and then you turn the board around and you play
Oh, I
that.
see what you mean.
There's no game because you already know how it's going to end up. You already know the next move.
Right.
It's a no game condition. So a Thetan, per the axioms, has to agree to become aberrated in order to play a game. You know all the rules, and you go, oh well, I'm going to forget rule 7, 3, and 15 because otherwise I've got no game. Okay.
Wow.
So what have you done when you've done what do you've taken those rules and you put them in a vault and said those are private. I no longer know those. They're private to me as a Thetan. I'm not going to know those rules anymore. And that's how you fall down the slippery slope as a Thetan. Now our listeners might be saying, well, then what's the point of it all? Fair question.
Hmm.
Okay, but then you enter into it, Thetan plus physical universe. The physical universe, let me tell you,
It's
that's a whole game on in and of itself, plus you.
yeah. What comes to mind within that is the similar dynamic that happens with what I hear, um, like cryptocurrency and like happens like of you taking the physical cash and converting it into cryptocurrency, and it basically um, I don't know if I'm going to be able to put this into words, but it uh, it like it like cleans it, I guess. I don't know if that's landing in the way that I'm.
Well, it's money is an alter is. Okay, like Ellerate says in the finance series, money is an idea backed by confidence. The U.S. government says this piece of paper has value. That's an alter is. It's a consideration. This piece of paper can get you chickens, can get you water, can get you a house, can get you this. And we're backing it up and saying it has value. Whereas before, used to be you had something valuable, a piece of gold or silver or whatever was considered to be valuable, and you gave it to a blacksmith to hold on to. They were the first bankers. Okay. And you said, hang on to that. And people say, this is a pain in the ass. Just give me an IOU so I don't have to move this shit around. Then we had paper money. Okay. Well, that carries over to governments. Now you've got this alter is that starting off with gold has value in the first place. Platinum has value. Silver has value. Why? Because it's rare. That's the consideration. Okay. Anything could be considered to be rare. There are a lot more rare things than that. But they've said, okay, this is the significance. These physical universe objects that were considered to be something now are represented in paper. And then you're taking that paper and you're giving it to a bank that says, we'll hold it for you instead of a blacksmith, this paper that really has no meaning other than you agree. Again, I agree, you agree, they agree. They'll hold it for you that it has value. And then it's a number on a computer. And then you send that off to Coinbase and you put another alter is on it. And then you turn it into cryptocurrency, which then has another game, a mystery put in there to solve in order to keep it secure.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Do you see how this works? Alter is, alter is,
Security.
alter is, alter is, alter is. And then you want to get it back out and you want to take it from zeros and ones. You want to move it from this account to that. And you want to move it to this account to that. And then finally, you have it back as paper. That means nothing other than there's a consideration that it has value based off of gold that doesn't exist in Fort Knox because the US took itself off of the gold standard years ago when I was a little kid. Okay, that's just the United States. So you got alter is, 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 alter is. And you got these cycles of alter is, isness, as isness, not isness. So that is an analog to everything a Thetan does in order to have a bunch of games inside the game of a Thetan being in the physical universe. That's just one little aspect of it.
Well, okay, so I'm sensing what is the connection between security and privacy? Is there a direct correlation?
Secure what security does a Thetan need if it's not in a physical universe?
That's a great
It
question.
doesn't die. There's nothing to keep secure other than you are a static. Okay.
So
So
so it's like we have our gifts and our uniqueness, and it's our value. It's a rarity, and therefore it's value. And so how um how secure should we keep, like, it seems like we should flow our value with the world. And so I guess that's where it kind of, is the word, like, basically bypasses the whole money alter is thing by
yeah,
just working on the playing field of just flowing value versus I guess the via of money that is the via for the value. I don't know if I'm using
well,
the correct words on that.
right. Well, value is both subjective and objective based off of the
Oh, interesting.
consideration of any
Wow.
particular Satan. Okay. If a person is inherently evil and they're a Hitler type, somebody of that tone level would say that guy has value. Whereas somebody that was uptone and didn't have all kinds of overts and withholds would go, well, there's no value there. That's only non survival. So value is a relative term to what and where you occupy on the tone scale and ARC. I mean, a person's value is only what they consider it to be, let alone the value of something else. One man's junk is another man's treasure, whether it's physical or it's spiritual. The potential value, we did a podcast based off of LRH's concept of potential value, is to the degree that they aid the survival of themselves and others.
I like that. Yep. Yeah. My stable datum is that every being, every Thetan is valuable. And it's just a matter of figuring out how to package it and exchange that value with the world. It makes the difference.
Right. Well, with the physical universe or the theta universe, is tearing down a forest in order to put a school there valuable to the birds and the ecosystem in that forest? No. Is it valuable to human beings? That's arguable, depending upon what they're being educated on and how they educate them. So they're all, realities are relative. And that's the thing that Scientology and Dianetics helps with, is you have to look at, okay, what game are we really playing here? What game am I really playing here? What are my purposes, like we do with the admin scales? What are your goals and purposes across your dynamics? That's why we do admin scales. Are you are you inherently evil? Well, you're going to have a different admin scale. Or you're looking out for the greatest good for the greatest number of people, meanwhile trying to survive at the same time. I have people all the time that say, well, why don't you just make everything free? There's an exchange across dynamics, which we talked about uh, earlier today, or this evening your time, my morning, that you're looking at, okay, what does my first dynamic give my third dynamic? What does my first dynamic give my second? What does my second give my first? And that goes all the way up to the seventh and eighth dynamics. But the thing is if a person thinks they're a meat body and they don't even know that they're a spiritual being that is not a meat body, their purposes and goals and values are going to be entirely different, because they're not even aware that they're a spiritual being, not a body. And
Yeah.
that's the first hurdle.
I, I do recognize that it's really important to not just give everything away for free, so to speak, to everybody, because if people have a need to climb and improve their communication, to just communicate their value and what they have to the world around them, they'll be able to have the money or resource or whatever. But it seems that's what it seems to me, is that like I never want to be in a position to enable somebody, or uh handicap them. So that's
Right.
where
Well, that's
the
exchanged by dynamics, it's just part of the admin skills. Valuable final product. A product is exchangeable. You can give and 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 give, and people will take it, take it, take it, take it, take it, take. Or you can give and give and give and give, and people will give back. That's exchange. That's exchange by dynamics. What does an auditor give a PC? What does a PC give an auditor? You can't, in this game, in the physical universe, with money and all of that stuff, an auditor's got to survive. A PC's got to survive. Their dynamics flow within your dynamics, and there has to be a fair exchange. But when you're dealing with individuals, one for you and 16 for me, 16 for me and one for you, that's not fair exchange. But you also have to take into consideration where they're at on the tone scale. Because if they're not aware of what your potential value is, what their potential value really is, and you're trying to do something for them, and you give and give and give and give, and they take and take and take, okay, that's out exchange. And a lot of times, Thetans don't realize what it is they're really doing until later on, because auditing moves faster than they realize their change has occurred. Okay, so it gets really complex because of all of the alter is on the line, and it's hard to express to somebody, whether you're a Scientologist or you're a Catholic priest or Mormon or Hindi or whatever. All of these concepts weave in and without, in and out and everything, and they're all the same. Scientology is just one way of putting it. It's a very logical science. It's not a pseudoscience. It's a science. It's demonstrable if you use it. And that's what we're trying to do here, is trying to get people in touch with a larger reality
Hmm.
than they are aware of, because they've de-educated themselves voluntarily or involuntarily. And we're just pointing out, hey, check this out. Is it true for you? Yeah, I went out and I applied ARC and it worked. Okay, great. Here's another one for you. Over and over and over and over and over. Now, there's liabilities with that, because people tend to resent you because they think you're trying to be better than them.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, especially as an auditor, LRH says, they resent you because they get the idea that you think you're better than them because you're helping them out with something that they didn't before know. And that's the liability of being an auditor. Okay,
Wow.
well, if you agree to it and you want to be an auditor, that's fine. I've done well with it. We've done well with it. But when you're dealing with reactive minds, you're not always going to get 1 + 1 = 2. And if you don't have the stomach for that, well, then you might want to just get out of the physical universe altogether and sit on a mountaintop for a couple million years and see how you like that better. You can play a game or you cannot play a game. That's it.
Hmm. Well, so I'm curious how, with where you're at, knowledge and awareness and everything, and how do you articulate the game that you're playing?
In what way?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult question to. I don't know. It's more of a curiosity of how, like, you're able to simplify things. And in my process, I've that the policy letter you showed me. I forget it, but it was talking about complexity and simplicity, and
Yeah, complexity and confronting. Yeah,
and I tend to
complicate.
unpack things, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
And I guess that's been a fun game for me. I do have a lot of fun with it, but then whenever I recognize other people are kind of counting on me to get from point A to point B, I
yeah. Well, I mean,
just
that's just one of the idiosyncrasies of a being that likes to play lots of games. Okay. No, not no. No, not no. No, not no. And the significances are just that. They're only as significant as you make them. Are they important? Maybe, maybe not. What importance do you apply to something in order for it to be significant? Tiny, tiny little ant crawling across my desk as I'm coding. Is that significant to me? No. Is it significant to the ant? You better believe it. You
hmm,
better believe it. That little scout is looking for some food and he's dropping pheromones saying, this is my path, so I can remember where I came from, and then I can walk that path and I can get food back to those in the colony. And this is all they do. That's significant to them. Does it matter to me that it's significant? Yeah, it matters to me. He has just a right to survive as I do. A lot of people don't see it that way. But
wow.
but I don't get tripped up on the significance. I just look at, he's doing his job,
Oh, wow.
you
Yeah.
know, and that's how I look at it. Is it significant? Yes and no. Am I going to kill it? No, I'm not. I'll brush it off the desk. It's so light, it'll land on the floor. It goes about its merry way, maybe comes back up after once or twice, that type of thing. But I mean, we have to coexist, because if we didn't have ants, we didn't have spiders, we didn't have bees. It's all an ecosystem. We're part of that ecosystem, whether we like it or not. We can't survive without bees. We can't survive without spiders. They can't survive they can survive without us. But, it, you just have to look at it from the viewpoint of everything's trying to survive. Okay, how they go about that is something that you need to understand. That doesn't mean it's complex. They're just trying to survive. That's the simplicity of it. It's in the physical universe. What is a Thetan doing? Well, Thetan can't help but survive for LRH. It just does, and that's what we are. How we survive is the issue. Do we make it complex? Do we make it simple? And having been a Scientologist my whole life, having been a Scientologist last lifetime, and the path that I had before that, there was a point in time where complexities were important. Complexities are not important to me. Unfortunately, complexities are important to a lot of other people on this planet at this time because there's nothing around us but complexities. Okay. Well, I mean, when I was a kid and I was programming in 1981 on my Atari 800 computer, I thought this is ridiculously complex to achieve this task. What the fuck? 40
Uh-huh.
years later, over 40 years later, almost 45, well, 45 years later, now we have AI that's handling the complexities. But it in itself is a complex alter-is machine that is having to go through all these vias in order to achieve a task that I tell it to do in words, which is an alter-is itself. Words are an alter-is. They represent something. So you got via, alter-is on top of alter-is on top of alter-is. Or you have this simplicity called the Thetan. Okay, can I mock up the AOGP website in my current state as an OT8 without programming it in code? I will confidently tell you no. But I do know that I do know what it looks like, and I will drop myself down into the physical universe and spend 6 to 9 months creating it in order to take my postulate and put it into the physical universe. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. And yes, it's a fun game, and there are ups and there are downs and there are highs and there are lows and all of that. But that's the game that I've chosen to play with those complexities. Did I sign on for it just like the guy that signed that HOA contract? You're damn right. And
Hmm.
I've agreed to become aberrated to play that game. Do I like it? No. What other game am I going to play other than trying to help beings get LRH's technology in this crazy mixed up universe called the physical universe? Well,
Hmm.
there you have it. And so everybody else might say, hey, this is a wonderful thing you've created, Jonathan, da 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 da, Axiom AI, da 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 da, and I can't take any credit for it. I'm just applying LRH. But he was in the same boat you are, I am, everybody else is. These are the games we choose to play, and we consider this is a game I want to play. That's a postulate. Okay, that's subjective put into the objective universe. He wanted to know what made the human mind tick back in the 1930s and 1940s, and so he decided to look into it. And there was all this significance and all this complexity and all these importances and all these dead ends. 40, 50 years in the making. And he kept playing that game. Well, we're playing the same game, whether we're AOGP or whether it's Joe Smith out on the street corner.
Hmm.
And that's what we decide to do or not do.
Well, my back to the ant,
Sure.
but the significance of the ant from the Scientology lens viewpoint. Can a Thetan be an ant? Is that
A Thetan can pick up whatever body that they want to, but I mean, it's sort of be like, I mean, speaking from experience, um, if you couldn't communicate well enough other than to those in your own species. I mean, you see
Hmm.
these interspecies relationships where wolves are hanging out with bears and they're best buddies. They don't speak the same language, but they speak the same language. That language isn't wolf and bear. That language is in the theta universe. They understand each other. They know each other. There's ARC there. There's KRC there. They can't see themselves in a mirror unless they look in the water and see a reflection of themselves. But it doesn't matter to them because it's not a significance to them. It's the ARC that matters. Even though
Wow.
they're wolf and bear, chicken and pig, whatever, you see it all the time. So, is it significant to them? No. Animals, they're much simpler in the way that they view things because that's their mode of operation. They're doing what they're doing. I mean, LRH says that birds and insects are hive minds. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. That was true for him. Do I see that as true? Yeah, pretty much. I do. An ant gets killed, the other ants come and take the body and bring it back to the hive.
Hmm.
They look at it and they go, "This is one of ours. We're going to take it home." That's exchanged by dynamics. When somebody dies here, unfortunately, depending on what country you're in on the planet, somebody's going to come along if they find you, and they're going to probably dispose of your body. It's kind of the same thing. But it just it depends on what's important to you and what's not important to you, and what the group that you're a part of decides is important and what's not important. Those are all considerations again. And, the whole line of it is survive. And how do we survive? We either agree or we disagree. Unfortunately, on planet Earth, people have really funny ways that they choose to try and survive at the expense of others. Not all of them,
And
but a
and
lot of them.
is there an objective importance?
Survive. The physical
Survive. That's
universe,
the importance. Yeah.
that's the importance. A
Yes.
Thetan doesn't die, but like LRH says,
Wow.
it's no fun being dead. Because
Wow.
okay, well, here you are. You could go, oh, I'm gonna go out through the galaxy or galaxies or whatever. Boom, boom, you're there. All right, been there, done that. What's next? Okay, all kinds of interesting life forms and everything, and they're playing in the physical universe. Huh. Well, it looks like they're having more fun than I am.
Mm.
I think maybe I'll drop down and do that again one more time and see if I get a different result.
Huh.
I'm oversimplifying it, but and that's just in the physical universe. You know, I can't answer all the questions of how a being ascends in realities and all of that stuff, other than this is the playing field I've been on for an extremely long period of time, and I agreed to that. And my purpose is to help people in that playing field survive better and help others survive better. That's my game. Your game, somebody
Mhm.
else's game might be something different.
Yeah. Well, I know running these Axiom AI prompts and going through it, it is definitely simplifying what I've had on my plate.
Yeah, and that's like LRH says, power is in simplicity, not complexity. It's all very simple. It's just a matter of recognizing it and understanding it. That is ARC. Affinity reality communication equals understanding. And all we're doing is we're simplifying the process to get to the simplified concepts.
Hmm.
That's all. Just like LRH was, we just have more modern tools to do it. The way he, is expressing it and everything, and we don't have to deal with the via of the reactive mind and somebody's attitudes. And, you know, uh, I could tell you countless stories about that. And I've talked about them in other podcasts where, it isn't the technology, like he says, it's the personalities involved because they've got their own altruismnesses on and how they achieve things and how they do things and their own little labyrinths. But with an AI, you don't have that complexity there. It is its own complexity, yes, but it it is a tool, and that's all it is. And it is a tool that uses LRH's tools the way LRH intended them to be. That's how I designed it. And that's how LRH designed it. I'm not doing anything. I'm just the messenger. So is the Axiom
Mm-hmm.
AI. It's all on how you use the tool. You can use a screwdriver to pull a screw out. You can use it to poke somebody's eye out. People do
Mm-hmm.
the same thing with Scientology all the time. That's what Black
That's
Dianetics
true.
is, you know? So
Yeah.
a tool is a tool is a tool. It's all in how you use it. And if you understand something, you can use it to aid your survival and the survival of others. But you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah. I'm wondering, how am I making things complex, or if I'm actually just coming from a place of complexity and moving towards simplicity. It's I'm going and collecting the variables that I have, like the doubt conditions on, and things I just don't understand, and gathering all, putting them in a list, and I'm working on simplifying and excavating it all. And but yeah, I'm wondering where the complexity fascination comes from for me.
Well, I mean, is it a game? Yes. Is it a game? Is it
I
interesting because
guess.
it's complex?
Well, I guess maybe it could most definitely be like a way so I don't get bored and fall into boredom. That could
Okay.
be kind of like a baseline that I've created to not get bored.
Okay.
But yeah, that's all I got on that one.
Notice I'm not evaluating. What's true for you is true for you, Raven. And
Mhm.
that's all there is to it. From my viewpoint, the and the understanding of LRH's viewpoint, I look at the conditions and I go, well, duh, that's the axioms. I look at the data series and I go, well, yeah, that's the axioms. I look at auditing, yeah, that's the axioms as well. You look at the third party law. Yeah, that's the axioms. Axiom 11, isness, alter isness, as is, not isness. It's all one and the same, but that's why they're called the axioms. They are the basics of everything in Dianetics and Scientology. That is where everything derives from. Did I understand the axioms at 18 at Flag when I was studying them? I read them and I went, okay, I can see how this could be. And I operated with them. But it wasn't really until I started working with other people as an auditor and everything over time, especially in the last couple of years, especially in the last few months, in having to deal with them and get hip deep in the axioms and everything that I used to think with the axioms, but now I think with the axioms, and it's not a matter of think, it's just that I know them. I have a conceptual understanding of them. It's sort of like Neo could see the code. The axioms are the code, okay? And that code isn't a physical code, it's just an understanding of the universes around you and your interplay with them, because they aren't bad, they aren't good. It's just okay. This is
Yeah.
how you go about things. And for it to make anything persist, you have to make it an alter is in order to persist, especially in this universe. But a postulate is an alter is. Things are the way they are. You change it, you make a postulate. That's an alter is.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
okay. And then you go from there. And then at some point, you as is that postulate when you achieve it. I brushed my teeth twice
Mm.
today. Okay. I started out with an isness, changed it to an alter isness, and then got an as isness at the end of the day. If you consider the cycle morning and night, I brushed my teeth twice today. Okay. And then the cycle starts again. I need to brush my teeth. What's the alter isness? The consideration that you need to brush your teeth. What's the alter isness? You have a body that you have to brush teeth on. And then there's alter isnesses in there, the plaque that develops on your teeth. They're trying to survive. Those are bacteria. You get the picture?
Yeah.
Alter isness, just like crypto, just like the HOA, all this stuff. And I look at this stuff, and I'm walking around the house dealing with coding, Axiom AI, and all of this stuff. And I'm looking at these cycles of action: start, change, stop, isness, alter isness, not isness, as is. Everything I do, cycle of action, isness, alter isness, as is, and then you just recognize it for what it is and admire it and go, okay, yep, he was right. See it all the time. How can I use this to survive better? And that's all that it comes down to: complexity and confronting. Can I complicate the subject of how many cycles of action I do from waking up in the morning to the time that I go back to sleep for the body that has this alter isness of me being imbued into it, wearing it out? It's thousands of cycles of action, thousands upon thousands every day of not isness, alter isness, as isness.
Hmm. And axioms are objective.
Are
That's
subjective. They are
They're
subjective.
subjective. Why do I
Subjective.
not have them?
You need to
And
you need to demo it out
ethics.
objectively.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, and ethics are objective.
No, ethics are
So
subjective.
they're both subjective.
They're both subjective. You're just applying them to the physical universe. Is being good a subjective concept or an objective concept?
Subjective.
Right. It's just a concept of being good. That's subjective. Okay. Now, how do you apply that to the physical universe? What is being good?
Um, doing like the definition of ethics, doing the greatest number of good to the greatest number of dynamics, in essence.
Right. Right. Ethics is a personal thing. What's good to you, what's good to me, what's good to Quentin, those may or may not be the same thing. Or to
Mm-hmm.
somebody else that isn't a Scientologist or lives in a different country or lives on a different planet or is in a different universe. That they're all considerations. Good and bad is a consideration based off of one's personal ethics. To the devil, quote unquote, to the devil, good is a relative term. To God, good is a relative term. Why do planes fall out of the sky and he allows it? Well, God works in mysterious ways. But, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and people accept that. I don't accept that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that true for you? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe,
Nah,
maybe
yeah,
not.
I'm in the same boat. I'm in the same boat.
Right. So that is a subjective understanding of the physical universe, but it is also a subjective context of what is good and what is bad,
Mm-hmm.
because that's why ethics is a personal thing. You look at all the Scientologists in the corporate church of Scientology, however many of them that are left and everything, they look at independent Scientologists as bad because we're not part of that organization, but yet we follow the same rules. Isn't that upside down?
I just don't, from my personal investigation and rigorously communicating with many personalities in the Church of Scientology, I just don't see them playing by the same rules. I
Well,
don't.
and that's because there's an alter is on the line. LRH says the only way to control somebody is to lie to them.
Right.
Okay.
And
That's not a
I
bad thing. That's just altruisness. That's how you control somebody. You lie to them. You say this is LRH's stuff. It's not. Some of it is, but it's not. Okay. But complexity and confronting policy letter says what's so complex about something that disallows you from being able to confront it. Okay. And so when you try and present that to somebody and you say, hey, I've got evidence that the church has altered the information so much that it has become what it has become. And they'll look at it, and I have had people, my best, closest friends, tell me, yeah, I see it, but it's too complex for me to confront.
well, well, I think I found the simplicity leverage. I believe I have.
Mm-hmm.
And what I what it seems to me is that what we all know as Scientologists is that LRH would always say, if it's not written, it's not true. And he was
Right.
super rigorous with documenting everything and organizing everything. And
Yeah.
so the passing of the hat of LRH's hat as the founder and how everything got passed into the in charge with David Miscavige, that piece I really zeroed in on. And basically, all that I got from significant, quote unquote, members of the Church of Scientology would say that it is written, but it was written and it was in a private personal will of L. Ron
Yeah.
Hubbard.
That's a whole
And
other
it's,
story. I mean,
well,
Miss Cavage didn't get assigned that post by LRH. That's a falsehood. Okay.
but if
He usurped it. Okay. He usurped it because nobody else was able to say, no, you can't do this, because they were playing a game where he saw this for what it was and said, okay, I'm going to muscle all these people into doing something over a long period of time. And I'm going to get my way, and I'm going to do it the way that I wanted to. And nobody had to confront, because they looked at it as so complex. How am I going to handle this guy? That they just went into agreement with it. And the altar is persisted and persisted and persisted. And now you've got books that aren't what LRH said, concepts that aren't LRH concepts. All that stuff was there.
was
But the thing, you got to prove it to the person first.
for me, where I'm at, it just doesn't make sense because to me, I'm like, okay, we're not playing the same game. We're not playing by the same rules because if you
That's right.
apply what we're being taught, then it would become an obvious outpoint. That's how it was for
Yeah,
me, at least.
yeah. And that's the thing is that there's a ton of alter ises on that line alone, to the point to where you have all kinds of things that have been altered. And the only reason they alter them, well, not the only reason, there's a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons they alter them is that's the only way they can keep a copyright on it. If it's altered, you can't
Mm.
recopyright something again. So they have to alter it in order to alter is it again to make it a copyright. But the only thing that can be copywritten really is the alterations, not the whole thing. So it's that rumor line. It gets changed, it gets changed, it gets changed, and it gets changed. And then you see people who they say, well, OT is about he who has the most toys wins. That's not OT. That's not what it's about. Acquisition of nest, acquisition of nice buildings that are empty because they're not actually applying Scientology. That that is the alter is. That is not survival on the third dynamic. Okay, having mausoleums with nice furniture and pictures of LRH is not Scientology because they're not even delivering Scientology anymore. They're delivering something else, and that's why they're empty. Because if they were delivering Scientology, they'd be booming. LRH says that himself. To the degree that you deliver this the way it's supposed to be delivered, is to the degree that you will have clears and OT students on course saying, I want what she's having, I want what he's having, that type of a thing. And instead, people see what it is and they go, I don't want what they're having. And that's why they're empty.
How do people get so much Scientology training? Well, I guess that's the thing, is it's altered,
They don't. That's the
quote
problem.
unquote. Yeah, they don't get. It's not even.
Right. They don't because they've been cut off from it. They've taken away the cow so that they can only provide the milk. And LRH warned about this way back in the early 50s. Okay. So, that's not pro survival on the third dynamic at all. And that's why we exist, is because we see the trees for the forest. And it's like, okay, come back over here. This is what he says. And that's it. This is just what he says. Just sit down,
Right.
read it, understand it, word clear it. Okay, can you apply it? Go out and see if it works for you. All right, good. You see that this is good? Yeah, it's like a great bowl of cereal. You want another bowl? Okay, here you go. Read this. Go out and apply it. Hey, can I have another bowl of cereal? And,
Mhm.
and that's it. It's, we're not doing anything but just doing what he says to do. That's it. In an even better way than the church ever did, honestly. And there's I have suspicions on that, but Scientology was taken out because it works, and it pointed in directions that the powers that be don't want people to have, because
What
they want to continue to lie to them. And Scientology was a lot more truth than they wanted people to know, because the only way you can control somebody is to lie to them and say, you live, you die, that's it, boom.
I missed the part where you said you have suspicions on this. What I missed what you're pointing to in that. What you're saying you had suspicions on.
Well, I mean, I can't say confirmably I've gone out and physically witnessed it, or I've got documentation. I mean, reliable sources, like LRH says in the data series, are reliable sources. And I can speculate on certain things, and it makes sense to me based off of everything I use and operate off of from LRH that I apply in my life, looking at things that I have suspicions, of a much larger order, that Scientology is not a solution to everything, but it gives you solutions to everything if you have that data to operate off of. And when you're living on a prison planet, that's a universal dumping ground, which is pretty obvious that's what this is. I mean, he says, if you were looking for hell and found earth, it would duly serve. I'd have to agree. I'd have to agree. Um, you don't, when the inmates are running the asylum, and LRH says, "Hey, I've got some keys here," and they say, "Wait, wait, 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 whoa, 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 whoa! You can't give them keys. That's that. No, 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 no." They had to take Scientology out, whether it's spiritually or otherwise, because These guys are way low on the tone scale, and they don't want you playing a higher game than they're playing. They want you playing it, and I'll use a non-Scientology term. They're playing at a much lower wavelength than we're playing, and they can't have that. So what do? You discredit the guy, pseudoscience, blah, 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 blah. Okay, have you ever applied it, folks? No. You read something on the internet and you said, oh, well, that's just absolutely the truth because I read it off the internet. Okay, next. Because they're a low order. They don't have the ability to perceive. They don't have the ability to apply. You can only help those who help themselves. That was LRH's viewpoint. And it's very true. If somebody can't help themselves, you can lead that horse to water, but you can't make them drink. That's up to them. And these guys don't like us leading people to water. That water is a technology that frees beings and allows them to observe, be able, we become competition, da 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 da. Okay, all of a sudden you've got Thetans going around, quote unquote, going exterior, remote viewing and everything. And all of a sudden there's no secrets. That thing you were talking to me about earlier. We have a problem. We have a real problem.
Yes.
You don't want Thetans walking around in the Theta universe going, here's what's going on, because you're missing their withholds. Well, what are they going to do about it? They're going to discredit it. They're going to destroy it. They're going to tear it down, and they're going to bury it. And that's pretty much what's happened, unfortunately.
Well, you said something I really want to like zone in and unpack it. You said Scientology is not a solution for everything, but Scientology does give solutions for everything.
Yeah. It's sort of like, okay, we'll give you the tools. The rest is up to you. Go build the house. That's what Scientology is. Okay, does it have a lot of answers? Yes. Does it answer everything? No, it doesn't answer everything.
Maybe
that's up to you.
That's it. Yeah. What? Give me an example of what it doesn't give an answer to. It doesn't answer. Like, I haven't found one. That's why I'm asking, I guess.
Okay. If Scientology gave everybody $1 million,
oh, okay. Well,
would that solve the world's problems?
No. I see what you're saying there. Yeah, it does not. It would not.
That would be the antithesis of the concept of Scientology. Does it give you the ability to go out and do something to where you could do that? Yes. Does it allow you to misuse it? Does it allow you to use it properly? Yes. The rest is up to you, Dorothy, as Quentin says. The power was within you all the time. And that's very much the case. It isn't, you are Theta the solver. We are just giving you that ability back for you to go solve whatever it is you want to solve for you and your dynamics. Same with everybody else, whether they're aligned or disaligned. And I'm not being a critic of Scientology by saying this, but unfortunately, some of the most selfish people I've ever met are Scientologists. And I said this before in earlier podcasts. I mean, mine, me. They didn't get it.
I just want to check in on that.
Yeah.
When you say that, some of the most selfish, did you say selfish people are Scientologists?
Yeah. Some of the most selfish people I've ever met are Scientologists.
Now, I got to check in because it's like a lot of people use the word Scientologist and Scientology and whatever. And so not all Scientologists are created equal. Does that mean
that's right.
Independent Scientologists are selfish? Or
probably even worse than regular in the church Scientologists.
Oh, man.
Come on. No, serious. I'm dead serious. Because the thing is 50% of the gains are from training. 50% of the gains are from auditing or processing. Okay. LRH says, what do you have when you have an OT without training? You have a really big, dumb OT. Okay. A really big, dumb thing.
I see.
Because they don't understand. You can pull them out of the trash can. You can dust them off and shine them up and everything. They're going to end right back up in the trash can if they don't understand how they got there in the first place. Okay, it's one thing to clear out that storage space we were talking about. But what are you going to put in place of that storage space? You have to have the roadmap to prevent yourself from falling back into that trap again for yourself and for others. Okay, and if people don't understand the materials that LRH has given us, it comes to a flying halt. And you see this all the time in the church. You see this all the time outside of the church in the real world. You see this all the time in the independent field. Is that they don't understand this stuff, and it's an easy subject to understand, but it takes a long time to apply all of this information across the dynamics to really get it. And even then they might not want to help their third dynamic. I didn't like people till I got through OT7. It's in my success story. I was an auditor already, but I didn't like people. And then I got through that and I was like, you know what? I'm going to open my own org. Fuck this. This is screwy. Why am I doing it this way? I have all this information. I would be irresponsible to do anything but, because I sure as hell am not going to make it if this stuff isn't here for other people. And we clean this place up as best we can for those that want to clean themselves up and help others clean themselves up. You got to
Mm-hmm.
start somewhere. That's KRC, knowledge, responsibility, and control. But a lot of people, they're just, I mean, everybody gets into Scientology because they've got something they want to fix about themselves, period. We talked about that in earlier podcasts too. But the thing is at some point you cross over from the first dynamic to your other dynamics and you go, Jesus, I need other people to play a game with, not just for
Uh-huh.
myself, but for other people to have a game to play with me.
Right.
And their hilarity ensues, because if you're not trained on it, I mean, I talk to OT8s, OT7s, OT3s, whatever. I talk to them and I go, wait, you don't understand this? Just in them talking to me. And you've been in Scientology for 50, 60 years. Wait, what? I've talked to Scientologists who are in their 90s, and I've mentioned datums that LR8 says, not me. And they look over their shoulder and go, what? So,
Hmm.
and I'm not trying to fault them or anything like that, but the responsibility relies in you to go look, to go understand, to go apply. I mean, there's tons of LRH stuff that I've never read or I've never listened to. I haven't listened to all the ACCs. I haven't listened to every lecture LRH created. I haven't read every document LRH wrote. But I'll tell you what, I do have the axioms, and I do have all of my auditor training and everything else. And my auditor training was only the beginning. So, there's many sides to this coin. And to the degree that you understand it and you have a conceptual understanding of it and you use it for and with other people, is to the degree that it just expands and it expands and it expands and expands. I've never seen anything else like it on the planet. And that's why I do what I do. That's why we do what we do.
Mm-hmm. And so, where were you, like, receiving so you received auditing up to OT7
Ooh,
somewhere, and then you
yeah,
came into a realization.
past OT8. It was on OT7 that I decided, you know what? I'm going to start an org. So I officially started an org at that point in time.
Were you with the Church of Scientology at that time, or like how?
No, I was already out. I got out in 2004.
2004.
Yeah.
Okay. And where were you getting your? And it's auditing, right? You're getting auditing, not necessarily the training that you're speaking of.
Well, I was solo auditing. OT7 is solo auditing. All of the OT levels except for 5 are solo auditing. 5 you get from another auditor. You need a
Oh, interesting.
chaperone, an ambassador to do that, basically, and it's a hell of a level. But at that
Well,
point, that's when things really start to shift, even more so than on the earlier OT levels. And you become aware of a lot of realities and things that you would never ever know ahead of time. It's very personal, very, very personal. And you would never ever see it coming until you're actually there. And LRH talks about that as well. But you're peeling the onion, each grade, clear, each OT level. and your viewpoint changes and changes and changes with each process, with each level, with each grade, with each da 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 da. And what you would know at the bottom of the bridge and what you know at the top of the bridge are two different things. And then you get to the top of the bridge and you go, you know what? There's a lot more I don't know. Huh. Okay. And you know, that's the direction you want to be going in, is to, you want to know more on how to know. That's the definition of Scientology. So it's, you know, it's a constant improvement of awareness, beingness, doing this, having this, perceiving this, intentioning this, postulating this, and all of that. And
Mhm.
you know, it's never ends in the learning on it, but
So
it's all based off of the axioms.
so within that, so uh, you get your auditing all the way up as far as it can go. Then maybe you turn around, make sure you get the training in. So at a certain point, like from what I recall, LRH had a command or declaration. You can correct me if I'm wrong. They said, "Now go out and make a better bridge" or something like this.
Yeah, he said that in 1950 in Dianetics.
and that's still true based upon where you're at right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you have to. It's a relative thing. I mean, LRH created a roadmap and he improved it, improved it from 1950 all the way up to, you know, the day he shuffled off his mortal coil and went on to do something else. You know, I cannot speculate on that. That's his business, not mine. Um, and he
Not
said, okay,
objective.
yeah, he achieved everything he could achieve. It was cut short. That's a whole other podcast which we've done. Um, but you know, as far as build a better bridge, uh, you know, I see that there are things that could be done. I can't say that they should be done, and I would not and am not at a point where I would say, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to create this process, or I'm going to create this OT level, or I'm going to create this rundown, or whatever. He gives CSs a wide latitude on that, but I have enough respect for the subject and I have enough respect for him that until I absolutely 100% am sure, and that's a huge 100%, I would not ever do that sort of a thing. From my standpoint as a CS, I could see just in my work with AI and everything how things could be improved. Does that make me feel like I need to go alter his stuff? Absolutely not. I have a better understanding of the axioms and everything now, and I can see how this could connect to this, and you could do that. And yeah, CSs have that latitude to say, okay, we're going to prep check this goal. Did he do that? Yeah. Okay. Is it anything new? No. Okay. I don't need to create anything. He thought of it.
And, and to build upon that, that's what you're referring to as to alter it. What he basically, right? To
Well,
build
I mean,
upon.
it's that's a relative term, and there are those in the quote unquote free zone in the independent field and say, well, oh, I'm going to go create this and everything. It's like, okay, I guess that's your right, but if things go wrong, don't come to me.
Oh yeah. Um, well, okay. On another note here, you mentioned, in your words, you said LRH's life was cut short. Is that an objective or is that subjective? Like where?
Well, objectively, it happened in the physical universe. It's not subjective. He was murdered.
So that's where the cutting short has
Yeah,
context. Is
that's
the
yeah. The cutting short is that he was murdered. Period. Because
hmm,
he was under subpoena and they didn't want him to be going in court on the record and testifying. So they said, you got to go. So they withheld his, and this is what I was told by somebody that was 1 degree of separation, not even 1 degree of separation, spoke to LRH. So yeah, this is what happened. Now, you know,
okay.
I can neither confirm or deny that. Will we ever really know what happened? No, but
Yeah.
this is what I was told, and he wasn't that old. Would he have gotten more done? One could only speculate. Would it have been of value? One could only speculate. What was and what is? Okay, that's fine. Does the tech work? Yeah. Was he infallible? No. Nobody's infallible. Everybody has their issues that they could improve upon. But the tech works. I could give zero shits about what anybody says about LRH because I
Hmm.
know the tech works. It doesn't have anything to do with the man. It has to do with the product. Does it get results? Fuck yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Case closed.
And so what was the court case that he was being subpoenaed to
Well,
that got?
it was an IRS thing. If they can't get you on one thing, they'll get you on another on planet Earth. Usually there are two go-tos, and we've talked about that in podcast two, is it's either sexual innuendo or taxes. And so they
Hmm.
went after him on taxes and said, he needs to appear, blah, 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 blah. And that's how they were going to get a hold of the church, and that's how they were going to get a hold of his money. And then they would just swallow it, basically. And that's pretty much what happened. The current church is a branch of the fucking IRS. That's a reality. It's a factuality. The church is controlled by a bunch of non-Scientology lawyers. Period,
Wow.
paragraph, book, chapter, verse, volume. And that's not was not LRH's intention at all. At all. And he saw it coming. And that's why we have what we have today, because it's just been completely taken over. And the independent field isn't in a much better state. It's being dismantled group by group by group by group, and has for over 50 years. And it's just the same thing. And that's what happens. And we're one of the newer groups that's popped up in the last 15 years, and we just won't go away. We're like a bad rash. If my superpower is holding my position in space, and that is what is happening and what will happen. And so that's what you have to do. That's what LRH did. And when he walked away from the church and said, "Here you go, guys, it's your baby now," that was true for him, and he wanted to get on with his research, and he did. But it was also where things really started to go sideways because he was off the line. But he didn't really have any choice. There was a lot of things going on at the time that he had to do something else. He'd been kicked out of England. He had to live on the ocean, made it go right to have a ship. You have all these people saying, well, LRH was this and LRH was bad, and he threw this guy overboard, and he was a real crud. And da 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 da. And you know who you are, people listening to this podcast that do this shit, and I'm not okay with it. And I'm putting you on notice. You know I'm talking to, and it's not okay what you're doing on YouTube and in podcast.
Mm.
Knock it off. Jesus Christ. Anyway, that's a tangent.
Well, yeah. Well, I could pivot. One of the things that came up for me that I wasn't cognizant of it whatsoever, well, while I was going through my Axiom AI process,
Mm-hmm.
just like over the past couple of days, is, and this may not even be true, but I'll run it by you. What is the connection, the significance between money and the third dynamic?
Well, money is an exchange of energy. Okay, you go out and
Hmm.
you work 40 hours a week and you expend energy, and then they give you energy back in a different form for the energy that you've expended that got some sort of a product or hopefully a valuable final product. So you give them a valuable final product, they give you pieces of paper that are supposed to mean something, and then you go out and you exchange that energy for eggs and milk and a house and a car and da 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 da. That's all it is. It's an idea backed by confidence. It's an exchange medium. Money means nothing at all. It's just the consideration. I'm exchanging this for that. That's it. It's a medium. It isn't the thing itself, except we consider it to be the thing that makes the world go round.
And
Okay,
and
so
the,
go ahead.
well, the only business exchange, monetary exchange that really takes place happens through the third dynamic, right? It's not the
Well,
fourth dynamic
well, it's true the third
necessarily.
and the fourth dynamic. The third dynamic builds a dam that produces hydroelectric power. Is that an exchange?
Well, I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time?
The third dynamic builds a dam that produces energy through water passing over turbines that creates electricity. Is that an exchange for the fourth dynamic to the third dynamic, or a smaller third dynamic that's a part of the fourth dynamic?
I see.
You see?
Yes. Yeah.
Do 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 bees exchange with us?
Yes.
See?
Okay. The interface of the actual monetary transfer from one being to another or one organization to another, all those variables, that's you're only going to do business with people who have a common interest, which would make a third dynamic, right?
Right. If you say, "Hey, I need you to fix my car," do you go to the guy with the bad review, or do you go to the guy with the 5-star review?
Yeah, 5 star.
Right.
And that's because of reputation of, oh, because the
Exchange.
reputation comes from fourth dynamic.
Well, you can look at it that way if you want to. The fourth dynamic is, the group as a whole, the world and all the
Yeah.
people on it, but it has a bunch of sub third dynamics and sub third dynamics, that in themselves have second dynamics and first dynamics. They all exchange with each other. You don't have a fourth dynamic without a first dynamic. You don't have a fourth dynamic without a second dynamic, and you don't have a fourth dynamic without a third. You don't have the fourth dynamic without a fifth, without a sixth, without a seventh, without an eighth. They all interexchange, and that interexchange is put through into this via, at least on some of the dynamics, as either money or eggs for a a rake or a shovel or a plow or an engine or whatever. But that's the game of the physical universe, is you're exchanging one thing for another. But the most valuable thing to exchange above all else is the cheapest and isn't physical, and that's theta.
Oh,
Because
wow.
theta is theta. If you
Yeah.
go to a movie and it keys you out, you're like, wow, that's the best movie I've ever seen. You listen to music and it keys you out. Wow, that's my music. Got me through all those hard times. Da, 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 da. You go out and you stand at Yosemite and you look at Half Dome and you go, wow, that just really keys me out. Every time I go out and look at nature and everything, that's theta, because it's aesthetics. That's right below knowingness. That's a more powerful exchange than any money ever.
Hmm.
Creativity is theta, and that creativity drops down into the physical universe. Guy creates a pot puts a plant grows food, person eats the food. These are all connections between dynamics. So what produced all of that? Theta pushing something else, the urge to survive as theta in the physical universe.
Okay. Well, so I'm just going to keep bringing it back here because this is really where I'm at in my processes.
That's
The
fine.
actual monetary exchange will always take place through the via of the third dynamic. Is that correct?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you could take somebody in a Dianetic session and say, hey, it's on the house. Okay. Was there any money involved? No. Was there an exchange? Yeah, there was an exchange. What was the exchange? Well, there's several. The person
Okay, so that's probably
person
where
got more theta. See?
I see. So there's a deeper layer that I hadn't really got to, which is take it out of the money stuff and go deeper into the exchange.
Yeah,
Okay.
money is a
So,
via. Money is a
okay.
via. Now,
Well,
what's the exchange for the auditor doing something for the PC for free? Well, they got experience. They helped somebody. They felt good about helping somebody because it's along their goals. However, that's a closed loop exchange, because if they did it for free and they kept doing it for free, how would they then get food? Well, if the PC brought them some food, which is another form of a via, just like money, and said, "Hey, I brought you a casserole. I really appreciate all you're doing for me. Had a lot of games in session and everything. I wanted you to have this." Okay, great. So you could do it that way, and you take out the via of money. The casserole is the exchange for money. Or you audit the guy, and then he says, "You know what? Your roof needs fixing. I'm going to go out and fix your roof." That would be another form of exchange for the auditing. It just depends. It's a matter of considerations, and unfortunately, the way this planet works, which is really weird, is that it uses these little tickets called money in order to get things done. And the more tickets you have, the more influence you have, the more aberrated you get, and you can see how far things have gotten aberrated with the people that have the most money. It's not pretty. It's very, very dark. So,
Are you
and
in
that's
favor of getting rid of money as quick as you get it, basically?
well, I mean, the game is what the game is. Unless you're self-sufficient and you live off somewhere in the Rocky Mountains or someplace isolated, and you have a closed system where you've got goats and you've got cows and all of that, and you have your own little ecosystem, and you can, if you want to be a vegetarian, that's fine. You want to kill one of your cows, okay. I mean, and that sort of thing may or may not have to be done depending on your considerations. You can do that.
Well,
But that takes a lot of planning, and it
yeah.
takes a lot of theta in order to do that. It's not wrong, and it's not inherently right. I mean, there are no absolutes per LRH. So, uh, you know, unfortunately, at this moment, I'm hard pressed to find anybody that doesn't have to play that particular ticket game. We all have to survive. I can't go to the store and say, "Hey, I'll give you a free session for $100 worth of groceries."
Right.
It doesn't
Well,
work.
I'll give more. Let me give some context to where that question really come
Okay.
from me is so if acquiring more and more tickets, the money
Mm-hmm.
is directly correlated to getting more aberrated. You're collecting aberrations.
Mm-hmm.
What
Messed.
my more mess? Okay. Well, interesting now that you say that, because what I was going to say, I was building a foundation for here was actually what that I said, are you in favor of actually, as soon as it comes in, do you want to get rid of it? Is not really get rid of it, but flow it somewhere, not hold on to it. Because that's actually a um, principle, if you will, of Grant Cardone. I hear him often say that cash is trash, and but he also would say put it into like a real estate asset, and then we're getting into the conversation with the the ties between the Church of Scientology and real estate in that conversation.
Right. Right. So, if you get a lot of energy in, what should you do with it? Well, per the affluence formula, you should invest in service facilities, pay all bills, all that stuff, and that's it. And that's what you do. What would I do if, you know, somebody said, "Hey, here's X million of dollars. I'm a whale. I'm going to give you $40 million." My son had a friend of his, that gave the church $40 million, but yet wasn't doing services themselves. They just said, I'll catch up next lifetime. Gave the church $40 million. What would I do with it? I'd go buy an island. I'd make sure that it had a hotel on it, had boat facilities, had a runway, uh, arrange some sort of a shuttle to get to the island, and invested in service facilities to get people up the bridge, and make sure that AI was a big part of it. Make sure that people were getting standard Scientology through that AI and through standard Scientology auditors. We're getting trained in everything, and simplify it and make sure that it was 100% the way LRH said that it was supposed to be, without all of the complexities and stuff like that you have with the Sea Org. I think that can be very much simplified now as opposed to then, and stay out of these third dynamic aberrations and stuff like that, and just keep it simple and get people up the bridge at an affordable price. I mean, that's what we would like to do. But the thing is being an international org and being virtual, you don't have all of that mess, all of that liability. So, okay, maybe I'd buy a bunch of servers and make sure that everybody could do what they needed to do, so that we could get in comm with people and have all the stuff that we have. But beyond that, what more does a person need? You know, Five
Hmm.
houses is a big problem. It's a lot to be responsible for. One house is enough. Six cats, that's enough. One dog, six cats and one dog, that's enough. I mean, the more mess you have, the more responsible for it are. And you look at all of the complexities that Cardone has gotten into, and all of the legal stuff that he's gotten into, and everything. Um, I mean, maybe it's because he's so successful and people want to take him down. Maybe it's because he's doing something he shouldn't be doing. Maybe he's 100% right, and that's just the inherent liability of owning mess. I don't know. I'm not going to criticize the guy. It's just you never know, because I'm not there and I'm not looking at the situation. But to the degree that you flow power and theta to other beings is to the degree that you won't have a damn thing to worry about.
Mm.
Everything else will solve itself. And that's how we operate. And it ain't easy. It ain't easy.
Hmm.
But,
Well,
it's a hell of a game.
well, you brought up the Sea Org, and just the best thing to do is stay away from aberrated groups. And what I've been processing for myself, or considering for myself, and looking at it, is uh, what I thought, what I admired about the context of the Sea Org with the Church of Scientology is that um, they Sea Org members could not have, like, well, definitely marriage, could not have
Yeah.
marriage outside of the Sea Org. Um, and
Yeah. And,
maybe,
and for obvious reasons, because if your dynamics aren't aligned, your dynamics aren't aligned. One guy's sitting there, spending 12, 14, 16 hours a day. They have no time for anybody else because they've devoted themselves to that which they consider to be important. Nothing wrong with that. Their spouse is working at Ford, works 12 a 10-hour shift, whatever, and that's not necessarily aligned. And that's why I said, the complexities on the third dynamic are are really great to deal with, and I mean great being large. And LRH was trying to simplify that with a lot of the Sea Org stuff, but it's a very, very sticky situation. And I, in my own personal opinion, I think he did the best thing that he thought was the best thing to do at the time. I think it could be done, especially with modern technology. It could have been done a lot better, and the exchange could have been gotten in better for the people that are dedicating their lives to it. And if they decide they want to play another game, there are situations where people wanted to play another game, and he said, hey, you know what, see, our contract is null and void. Go be a professional singer and win a Grammy. He did that. uh
really.
yeah. So I mean, these are rare cases and stuff like that, but I mean, he was looking at it from his vantage point and his goals and what he was trying to do and everything. And I completely respect that. And the Sea Org obviously could have been done better. I'm not knocking it, and I really admire the people even to this day that are doing that, and their altruism and what they're trying to do. I don't hold anything against them in doing that. uh, would we develop a Sea Org? Probably not. I think that would probably be something that it could, if everybody in the Sea Org was allowed to go OT, that would be one thing. That's what we're doing. Unfortunately, that is not the case for 95, 96% of the people in the Sea Org. They never make it to OT. 2 hours a day ain't going to get you OT anywhere fast. And if you're lucky, you get that 2 hours a day in the Sea Org. In the corporate Church of Scientology. There are much better ways to do it. Am I going to reinvent the wheel? No. Are we going to reinvent the wheel? No. We're approaching it from a totally different vector, as
Mm.
AOGP. So don't anybody go out there and say, "Oh, he's starting a Sea Org." No, we're not. But everybody should have absolutely their OT levels, and if they're in alignment with their admin scales are in alignment with our admin scales, then we have no problem. But nobody's. Um, you can approach any Sea Org member and say, "Have you done your admin scales? All of your admin scales and your 8 dynamics, and are they all aligned with each other and with the Sea Org or with the church?" I could confidently tell you, no. And I don't even have to go out and research that one. I can confidently tell you, as an OT, ain't happened. It isn't going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. Okay, not now, nor has it in the past, unless there was some go-getter or something like that. But if you're in alignment with what LRH's stuff is in alignment with, then you ran into, well, the church is taken over. Now they're not in alignment with my dynamics, and that's why most of the class 12s and all of the good people are no longer in the corporate church, because they saw it for what it was and they left long ago, or they died, one of the two. So there you have that.
Yeah. Well, would you say so? For the listeners and who don't know my storyline, I was born into the culture of Scientology, the Church of Scientology, and so from my viewpoint growing up, I always had it that like Scientology was like a spiritual military. Is that a viewpoint that you have present day, present time?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. Um,
Maybe the um
my reality,
opposite
my
of
reality is completely opposite of that, personally.
being that military would be uh in the context of like death and knocking consciousness out.
Yeah, I mean, I came from a generation of father who was a baby boomer, and he found out about Scientology at a lecture at a community college, and that's how he found out about Scientology, and quickly became a class 4 auditor. And my dad had been in the army already and stuff like that, so he was already a little military like, but I never conflated Scientology with militarism. I looked at Scientology as the polar opposite of militarism. LRH, was in the military, he was in the Navy, and there's nothing wrong with structure. Absolutely nothing wrong with structure, especially in this current society that we live in. People are so anti-structure. They're on their phones all the time. They want everything push button, and they don't want to do anything. They don't want to confront. They can't communicate. Um, I mean, there's nothing wrong with structure and militarism are two different things. Having structure is not militaristic. It is part of the military, because if you don't have structure, you're going to be dead real quick. But that's
Mm-hmm.
not part of Scientology. Now, in the Sea Org, it has a military bent, and they wear these uniforms and hats and stuff like that. And that was something LRH put there, and that's what he wanted to create. And okay, fine. If you want to do it that way, that's fine. You want to call people sir and have respect and everything and salute. All right, that's fine. If it's acceptable in the group and everybody's cool with it, so be it. But Scientology isn't militaristic. That's my reality. I mean, getting somebody
Yeah.
to get a product, hey, you need to get this product so this person can get up the bridge. You need to get this product so you can get up the bridge. I don't see anything wrong with that. Waiting for somebody to return a phone call, or waiting for somebody to get something done. And I mean, non-Scientologists, what's the rush, man? What's I mean, what's the rush? I mean, that's planet Earth. That's not Scientology. But conflating it with militarism, having some control in your life and saying, I need to get up at this time, I need to be ready by this time, I need to go out and start my business, I need to talk to people, I need to get products in order to survive. Is that militaristic?
Hmm. Maybe I need to really take a look at that word military, militaristic. Um, Because no, to answer your question in that context, no.
Yeah, I mean, the organization and military, the military is an organization. Apple is an organization. Do they expect you to show up on time? Do they expect you to get products? They expect you to meet deadlines? Of course. Who
yeah.
wouldn't? That's corporate structure.
Well,
In your own business, it's the same way. I mean, you have to get on your phone and you have to say, "Okay, I'm on duty. Send me an order." Okay, I'm going to
mhm,
go get it. And if you don't do that, you don't eat.
mhm. Yeah, I guess I've had it that the spiritual military, the spiritual is a modifier word of military, making it more altruistic or like not necessarily going to conquer, but the mission statement. I don't know if it's the mission statement of the Church of Scientology, but it was always like to clear the entire planet, and that is like a whole.
Well, that was
It's
that
like
was his original intent. Yeah. I mean, can you do that without organization? Hell no. Did they pull it off? Hell no. Because
no,
there wasn't sufficient willingness from the people on the ground to make that happen. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should go out and say do me and be an auditor, okay? And get auditing and not be an auditor. If you wanted to clear the planet, you could clear the planet in less than a year. Everybody takes responsibility for another person, and the other person takes responsibility for them, and they co-audit. Done.
well, what
Done.
about? So I just got within the last week reality on that the admin tech, administration tech is third dynamic auditing, like group
Yeah,
auditing.
it
Is
is.
that is that can that have the same effect at the
No,
magnitude? No. You
no,
said
it can
no.
help. It can
Okay.
help. I mean, the third dynamic is just as aberrated as any other dynamic. And, de-aberration is organization being put in. Auditing is organization being put in for the Thetan through auditing, vis-a-vis auditing. Policy, LRH policy, these are things he found to be true, things that worked, things that didn't work. He said, hey, check this out. Here's how you change oil on a car. Hey, check this out. Here's how you plant flowers and grow successful flowers or vegetables or whatever. Hey, check this out. Complexity and confronting. That's auditing. But this is the policy on it from the viewpoint of an administrator. You have somebody say, hey, what's so complex in your area that the things are a mess? Well, I'm having a hard time looking at all these accounts that need to be handled. There's an awful lot of folders standing there, and I just don't want to confront it. Okay. What about that so complex? Well, I just don't want to confront it. Okay, grab one. Okay, look at it. Let's finish that cycle of action. Okay, that's one less. That is third dynamic de-aberration. Same thing with a PC. Hey, I don't want to confront this thing about my childhood. All right, what about that's complex? Well, my dad, da 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 da. Okay, let's look at that further. I'll repeat the auditing command over and over and over. Person changes their mind, keys out. Okay, we've just put order in. That's first dynamic de-aberration, just like third dynamic de-aberration.
Hmm.
Same thing, just a different dynamic.
Okay. That makes sense. And it's not as monumental as first dynamic auditing, just regular
Not
auditing.
necessarily. Third dynamic de-aberration is just as important as first dynamic de-aberration because they both exchange with each other. How can you
Hmm.
get first dynamically de-aberrated? Well, there had to be a third dynamic there to train the guy that's de-aberrating you on the first dynamic.
Got it. Yeah. So don't get lost in the significances.
Exactly. Exactly. Simplify it.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this came up of the complexities is that what I recognize is in this conversation within the last couple minutes, actually, is because I really love the subject of astrology and these
Mhm.
other things that, they're just a lot of people perceive them to be very complex, and I can't say that they're not complex, but I've found joy in wanting to go and figure out how to understand them and to make them simple and to be able to do something with them. And not just astrology, but any other area of life, like the area of mental health. I'd say Scientology really covers that. But that, before I really confronted Scientology, that was something I was like, wow, there needs to be a solution and some kind of system or something, whatever is going on in the mainstream world that is terrible, is not working.
Right.
Then the subject of homelessness as well. That was always something that I was like, what is going on here? What's the real solution and the like permanent solution really for that? And so those are certain things that are on my admin scale on the bigger level of things that I'm working to confront and simplify and put a
Yeah.
system in order to, which that's a fun
Yeah.
game.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm as altruistic as the next auditor. I'm just as altruistic to a fault as you are. And my experience on this planet is there are an awful lot of people that profit off of people not doing well. And that's upside
Hmm.
down. And LRH gave us this technology that allows us to show people through auditing, through admin tech, first and third dynamic, second dynamic deaberration, all 8 dynamic deaberrations, that if you're not working with a concerted effort through a group of people who are aligned in that same area and can protect one another, and you're dealing with a situation of David and Goliath, you're dealing with people who have billions of dollars who have manipulated these areas that you just mentioned. Um, you can either play their game or you can go play some other game. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with going and playing those games and that type of thing. But it all starts out with having deaberrated individuals who have the horsepower to stand up to something that, I mean, they're making it in the US, at least, they're making it almost impossible to buy a house. And I mean, there are more empty homes than there are homeless people. This makes no sense.
Really? That's an
Yes,
interesting.
there are more empty homes than there are homeless people. And that's for a reason. You have to look at who benefits. And when you're
Wow.
dealing with a group of individuals who have reactive minds and they have zero ethics across their dynamics and care not about the common man and his basic rights, why do we have to pay to have a roof over our head? I mean, you look at what the some of your more provincial religions in the United States. They go out and they help their neighbors build a house or build a barn. And they have a barn raising party, and they go out and they build the barn together. The wives make all the food, and the guys go out there and they put a barn up over a weekend. Now, who's to say who's paying for that? But the community works with the community, and it is provable over hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years, depending on what society we're talking about, that you don't need that if you have the proper ecosystem and all of the dynamics are aligned. But in our current modern day paper ticket society, that is not the case. And that's the problem, is because we've lost our way because of the reactive mind. I, me, mine, want, me. And that's a problem. So
Hmm.
how do you handle it? Well, you have to get things in alignment. You have a hundred people made up of a few families, and they can go grow crops. They can cut down trees. They can make planks. They can build barns. They can build houses. They have fences. They're raising their own crops. They're raising their own animals and all of that. And it's a self-serving ecosystem. Well, if they can do it, we certainly could do it. But when you add in all these arbitraries, these alter is's on the line that take you from point A to point Z instead of point A to point B, It's a very difficult system to push through in order to help very many people. So what's the solution? De-aberrate the people. Now, that doesn't mean that Mennonites or Mormons or whatever, are bad people if they're aberrated or they're not aberrated. If it works, it works. And I completely respect that. And I'm not trying to get anybody to shift their religion. I'm just saying what I see works for us and that I see an awful lot of truth in it. But I'm not trying to change anybody's religion or anything like that. But you got to start somewhere. And what's true for you is true for you.
What are Mennonites?
They're a more provincial sort of, in a little bit. They're a little bit like Quakers.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the other ones that we have in northern Missouri. Can't think of it. There's Mennonites, and then there's the other one. It just escapes me, and I always forget the name. But they're all they go
Amish?
around in the Amish and the Mennonites. They go around in their buggies and their horses and all that stuff. Some of them have cell phones, some of them don't. It
Got
depends
it.
on how closely they adhere to things. But they're not stupid either. And so they make great products. Their products are stellar in everything that they do, and they know how to survive, and they can, and all that stuff. And then that's great. They don't need modern technology any more than they decide that they need it. But the same holds true for Scientology too. We kind of do the same thing. It's just a more modern, quote unquote, religious philosophy. And they're not that different. They just have the via of this God in the sky that helps them with things, but yet they do fine. So it's a provable system. So Scientology, so's Buddhism, so's Taoism. You know, so there you have it.
There it is.
So I'm
Well,
about to run out of juice on my phone here, so I'm going to have to wrap this up with you.
okay. I'm about in the same boat. Got some rudiments. It's a new word for
Yeah,
me.
you got to get your body rudiments in.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope this has been helpful to our listeners and you, Raven, and has
Most
cleared
definitely.
some things up and everything. And we've crossed a lot of different subjects and everything, and it's one of our longer podcasts in a while. But I really enjoyed it, and I hope our listeners enjoy it. And thank you for being here, Raven.
My pleasure. Thanks for listening and watching, listeners.
Yep.
And I will say, I just got to throw this out there. The very free demo that's on the Axiom AI website, I got access to Axiom AI. I thought I was going straight in to get my wins, and I was on the free demo prompt of the procrastination handling. And I ran that, and I was like, okay, it found exactly the most magnitude of what I was procrastinating on, and it grabbed that particle and said, here, look at this. What are you going to do about it? I was like, okay. And what it was just go acknowledge I had 3 personal debts, and 2 of them within just a few days, completely absolved, over 2 grand total. And I was just like, wow, it's fantastic. So I like, that's a free one that's available. And I just want to let, my testament be known here on record. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And you can get that free demo on our website, ao-gp.org, and just click on Axiom AI at the top. Namaste, and we love you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.